Reading more is the ultimate life tip. Anyone boasts a strong reading habit, whether that's Elon Musk, Barack Obama, Bill Gates, or everyone's favorite magical gal, Matilda. Avid reading is virtually a prerequisite to long-term success. The world changes at an incomprehensible rate, and you can't expect knowledge that you learned in school or university to sustain you for your whole life. So that's why reading regularly is something that everyone must be doing. This video is going to transform you from a mindlessly scrolling, infinitely defocused degenerate to a highbrow academic reader extraordinaire. And once you have formed that habit, the world is your fucking oyster, because there is so much to be gained from reading. There's so much knowledge out there, and reading is such a wonderful, wonderful way to get comprehensive knowledge on whatever topic that you'd like. It's really worth your while to build this habit, and I'm very, very excited for you that you've decided that this is something that you're going to do. Anyone can do it. It just takes a little bit of perseverance, and I'm going to show you how to get there. My name is Ashima. I'm a third-year medical student from Melbourne. Let's jump into these tips. The first tip in this video, and one of the most fundamental ones, is to make reading a priority. You're simply not going to read more books unless reading is a priority that you consciously decided that you want to pursue. So I want you to remove the words "I don't have time" from your vocabulary, because that is honestly bullshit. There is a really great thought experiment to help you understand why saying that you don't have enough time is not a good enough reason. Pretend that you're a really high-flying CEO in a giant company. Your schedule is busy, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you're on work. So one day you wake up and your house is flooded. There's a burst pipe. What are you gonna do? You're gonna call a plumber. You're gonna let the plumber into the house. You're gonna rearrange your schedule so that the plumber can come over and fix your pipe, because the water problem is now your priority. So even though you're very busy, you're a CEO, you've got lots of stuff going on, you can always rearrange things to make time for the things that are important to you. Same way with reading. You can rearrange your life to make reading a priority, to make sure that you have time to do it, if it's what you want to do. If it's not something you want to do, then you're probably watching the wrong video. But if you've identified that reading is a priority to you, here comes the next tip. My next tip is to make a yearly book goal. My recommendation is to start off with a goal of 10 books in 12 months, and at a maximum, I recommend 12 books in 12 months. 10 is good because it's a good challenging number. So if you haven't read in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it's still a significant amount of books, but it's not so much so that it's going to be very, very overwhelming. Certainly don't start with a goal that's 25, 30, 50, because while that does sound impressive, you're just setting yourself up to fail if you do it like that. 10 books also means that if you fall off the bus, if you fall behind on your goal, you get to June, you've only read like 3 books and you've got 7 books left for the year, that's okay. You can still catch up in the latter half of the year with 7 books left, 6 books left, 8 books left. But if your goal was any larger, you would be far too demotivated at the end of the year to catch up, and you're more likely to just quit the goal altogether. The next tip is to read easy books, okay? Don't fucking touch Crime and Punishment. It's just not gonna happen right now. Pick your favorites. Pick young adult fiction. Pick small, easy books. My best recommendation for one to start off with is The Rosie Project. It's a trilogy. Bill Gates' favorite book. It's just a great, fun, happy series. There's also a great book called This Is Gonna Hurt by Adam Kay, which is a short, hilarious book that will keep you turning pages. Or you can read the great Australian literary classic, The Day My Bum Went Psycho. Anything that piques your interest and is short and easy to get through. Eventually, with enough practice and after you've read a few books, you will be able to pick up those denser pieces and those academic pieces. But if you pick them up at the start, you're gonna lose motivation, you're gonna lose interest, and you're just not going to be able to get through them. The next tip is to preemptively think of a time that you want to slot reading into your life. My current ones are in the morning and right before I'm going to bed. Those times suit me well because I find reading quite relaxing. Another trick you can use to form your new reading habit is something called temptation bundling, where you take something that you already do and enjoy and use that momentum to stack your new habit on top of. For example, if you like to turn on the TV after you get home from work, that's something that you like to do and you do it subconsciously, you leave your book around next to your remote control of your television. And make a little rule for yourself that if you're going to turn on the TV, you want to read for 5 minutes before you do that. So then now, next time you go to the TV and you look at the remote, your book's right next to it, and then that will remind you that you promised yourself that you're going to read for 5 minutes before you watch TV. It's basically a way to remind yourself to read by using things that you already like to do. Another cue that I use for myself for when I'm going to read is when I'm boiling pasta or making rice. Anytime I'm doing those things, it's a reminder for myself to get my book and read a few pages because I'm just standing around doing nothing anyway. So find those pockets in your life where you can slot in some reading and make it easy for yourself to make that choice. My next tip is to make sure that you have a reading buddy. So find a friend who will get on board, who will make a book goal, who will watch this video so that you can keep each other accountable for how many books that you're reading. And you can also bounce recommendations off each other and just see how each other are going. It's much easier to quit on just yourself than to quit on yourself and your friends. And it also starts a little bit of healthy competition. So if your friend's doing really well, then it's going to make you want to do a little bit better as well. And you can just keep each other motivated like that. My next tip is to know when to quit a book. A good number that I have in my head is around the 30% mark. If I'm not enjoying a book by the time I'm 30% into the book, I can it. This one is easier said than done because by the time you've slogged your way to 30% of a book that you're not really liking, it's probably taken you about double the amount of time that it normally takes you to read because it's so boring. And so you've invested a lot of time. So quitting the book can feel really emotional. Because it's not you, it's me. It feels like you're gonna waste all that effort you just put in getting to that point, which is where your buddy actually comes in real handy. It's much easier for your buddy who is not emotionally involved in your book journey to point out to you that you've been reading a book for far too long. So if you've been reading The Audacity of Hope for far too long, it's time to cut your losses and move on because it is not worth your time. The next tip, and this one is very important, so please make sure you do this one, is to make sure you have a list of books going that you can easily refer back to, either on your phone or mine is in my diary. Keep adding new titles to it as you go along because you don't want to be thinking about what to read next once you've finished a book. There is an equation in physics that describes friction, and what it says is that if an object is stationary on the ground, it requires more force for you to push that object from stationary to sliding than it does to keep that object sliding. It requires more effort to move it from being still to moving than to keep the object moving. And I think reading is much the same. So if you're already reading, if you're already in a good habit, you've just finished a book, it is a lot easier to just pick up a new book straight away than it is to read one book, have a break and read another book because you don't have that momentum going for yourself. So by having a list of books that you can easily refer to at any point in time, as soon as you've finished one book, you can pick up another and then there's no break in your sequence and you'll just read faster. And it would be awesome if you could put your book recommendations in the comments below. I'd love to get some recommendations off you and I'm sure the rest of the people watching this video would love some recommendations as well. My next tip is to take advantage of your local library because it is a treasure trove and Arthur was not wrong when he said that.
Is it hard when you got a library card?
What I love doing and what I recommend that you do as well is make an account with your local library. And most libraries, you can log onto their library website and you input the titles that you want to collect. So you've got your titles and your list of books that you've made previously. The library will email you when your books are ready to collect. You run over to the library, you collect your books, you scan them out. It's all free, it's all done. And now you've got 5 fresh books for yourself to read. And it's very exciting and motivating. And you can just keep doing that on rotation so you always have new books at your disposal. It saves you so much money, it's so much better for the environment, and it has an added bonus of if you ever get a parking fine, it stings a little bit less knowing that it goes to such a great library system. My next tip is to divide your book into smaller percentage chunks to keep you motivated throughout the book. So for example, if you have a 400-page book, 400 pages sounds like a lot, it's very demotivating. You could read like 3 pages and be like, oh, I'm never gonna finish this book, it's far too long. So if you divide it into 5% chunks, that's 20 pages. you can easily read 20 pages, and it's much more motivating to pick up your book and think, okay, I'm just going to read 20 pages today because that's 5% of the book, versus, oh, how am I ever going to get through this book? It's so long, I don't even know how to start. And if you think about it, if you read 5% of a book a day, you're going to finish that book in 20 days. That's very quick. My next tip is to read multiple books at the same time. And this is one that I really resisted for a long time. I had heard of it and I was like, nah, like, I don't think that's going to work for me. I think it's going to be way better to read one book at a time. But no, seriously, it is so much faster to read multiple books, because if you're reading a boring book or it's got a boring part in it, you'll probably just stop sooner. But if you've got another book, you might read 5 minutes of your first book and 5 minutes of your second book. And so your net at the end of the year is 3, 4, 5 more books than you would have normally read. That's also really great for when you're reading, like sometimes I do read like finance books or books that are a little bit more dry. Coupling that with a thriller or something that moves really fast keeps my motivation for both of those books up. My next tip, which just makes all of the other tips a lot easier, is to get a Kindle if you can afford one. I am obsessed with my Kindle. It is my favorite electronic item. It is so good. It makes reading multiple books at the same time so much easier. It's so much more convenient to carry around a Kindle with multiple books on it than it is to carry around multiple books. It also automatically tracks for you how far through your chapter or how far through your book you are in percent. So like I described before, working out the percentages, you don't actually have to do that on a Kindle. It just automatically does it for you. That one's not a must, but if you've got the money, then I definitely think that it's worth it. My last tip is to understand that it's a really hard habit to form and you have to persevere to get to the point where you're really enjoying it. Personally, I think it takes about 6 to 12 months to get to a point where you're actually enjoying the process instead of it being something that you're forcing yourself to do. So it's much like going to the gym. When you first start going to the gym, it sucks. You don't want to be there. You're shit at it. You're shit at everything. But as you start to improve, as you start seeing improvements, that's when you start to enjoy it, and that's when it stops being such a chore. Reading's the same. At the start, you're slow. Your eyes gaze off the page. You want to fucking be on your phone. You want to be at the shops. You want to do anything other than reading. But if you persevere and bring your attention back to that book, for 6 to 12 months, you're going to get to a point where you really enjoy it, and it's not going to be an active effort to do it. You're just going to want to do it. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in the future, remember to like and subscribe, as it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And I will see you next time I post. Take care and happy reading.